Okay, now let's talk about elements. When we're talking about elements, we're talking about substances that exist on the earth. Now, elements, we have over 100 elements found in different places, in different states, and different form. Now, talking about elements, elements are made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of atoms. So, to have an element, you have atoms forming molecules to give you an element. Atoms forming molecules to give you an element. Now, elements are divided into three. We have the metals, we have the non-metals, and we have the metalloid. We have metals, non-metals, non-metals, metalloid. Okay, now let's talk about metals. When we are talking about metals, we are talking about substances that attains ionization by loss of electron. Now we have started going deep into chemistry. Now let's take metals. Now, metals, the general understanding of metals for you to understand in the chemical term is that metals are substances which attains ionization through loss of electron. Now, this is an example of a metal. Let's say, for example, M, to give you a metal, is equals to, okay, let's say like M is equals to M plus E minus. So, loss of an electron makes a metal. Now, let's talk about properties of metals. Properties of metals. Now we're talking about those properties that makes up metal. And when we're talking about properties of metal, one of the things that you need to know is that metals are conductors of heat. Now, what makes metals conductors of heat? Now, let's say, for example, this is sodium. I want to teach you chemistry to the best way that you can understand. Let's go deep. This is sodium. Now, sodium has an element. An ion has a free ion. Has free lattice ion. Now, what does this mean? Let's say, for example, sodium is number 11. Sodium has 281. This one is feed. This one is feed. This one is free. So the reason why sodium are metals are conductors because they have free electrons to give out, or free ions to give out, to conduct electricity. So this sodium, we use this one to conduct electricity. And this sodium, like when I was telling you the properties of metals, this sodium will give out this one electron to become this. Now let's proceed. Conductors of heat. You can be writing. One, they said metals are conductors of heat and electricity. Conductors. Now, number 2, metals are malleable and ductile. Now, what do we mean by this? When we say malleable or ductile? Ductile means something that can be bent, something that can be reshaped. So, metals can be reshaped to form other substances. So, they can be used to make things, new things. They can be used to make other substances. Let's say, for example, aluminum sheets, roofs, and the rest. So, now let's go further. Now, metals are hard. Metals are hard substances. Are hard solid. Metals are hard solid with high melting and boiling point. High melting and boiling point. Now, but there is an exception to this. We made us understand that metals are hard solid with high melting and boiling point, but except sodium. Sodium is soft. Sodium, which is soft. and mercury, which is liquid. So when you ask a question, what is the only metal which is in liquid form? Your answer is mercury. And what is the metal which is soft and not hard? Your answer is sodium. So metals are hard solid with high melting and liquid point. Now metals react with oxygen to form basic oxide. Now metals, number 4, react with oxygen to form basic oxide. Now, what are basic oxide? Are those oxides of metals that has the characteristics of a base, which makes you to understand that metals will form red litmus paper to blue, all characteristics of a base. But there are some metals which do not just form acidic oxide, but they form amphoteric oxide. Some metals form amphoteric oxide. Now, what are amphoteric oxide? Amphoteric oxide are oxide which has both the characteristics of acid and at the same time the characteristics of base. Now, example of amphoteric oxide, we have lead oxide, we have aluminium oxide. Now, these two can function as an acid and at the same time as a base, as an acid and at the same time as a base. One thing you must note about metals, number 5, none of the metals dissolves in ordinary solvents without a chemical change. So whenever a metal dissolves with an ordinary solvent, there must be a chemical change. That is why they have high affinity with oxygen. Almost all of them react with oxygen. None without a chemical change. None of them dissolves in ordinary solvents without a chemical change. Now, also, metals are electropositive, just like I made you to understand that they are conductors. Now, one thing you should understand, one more thing about metals is that due to the fact that metals gives out electrons to be ionized, so metals are generally reducing agents. Now, what are reducing agents? Reducing agents are those substances that has the ability to reduce other elements or substances while themselves being oxidized. So whenever a metal gives out an electron to a non-metal, is reducing that non-metal to its to attain its stable state while the metal is oxidized to a stable state. Now, once you have seen the qualities or the properties of metals, let's use this to analyze non-metals. Okay, let's use this to analyze non-metals. Let's take non-metals here. Non-metals. Okay, so since we say that metals are conductors of heat and electricity, I made us to understand that they conduct heat and electricity because of the free mobile ions that they have. Just like I made us to know that, for example, we'll have sodium to be 281, that this sodium has this one as free because this 8 has been full, so it can give out this one to obtain a stable configuration. A stable configuration. So non-metals, for example, let's say chlorine. Chlorine is 17. Chlorine has 287. Chlorine needs 1 to complete this 8. So if chlorine needs 1, so that means chlorine or non-metals do not have free mobile ions in their outer space. So which is to say that non-metals are non-conductors of heat and electricity. As simple as that. Now let's go to Metals can be bent and drawn into shape. They are ductile and malleable. But opposite, non-metals are brittle. They are brittle, so they cannot be bent and they cannot be drawn into shape. So they are not ductile and they are not malleable. Now, number 3, hard solid, high melting point, and boiling point. But non-metals are not hard solid. Now, let's say, for example, 4 react with oxygen to form basic oxide. As metals react with oxygen to form basic oxide, non-metals react with oxygen to form acidic oxide. So, whenever you see an oxide of non-metal, it's an acidic oxide. Let's say, for example, SO4. Sulfur is a non-metal. Why? This is oxygen. So sulfur being a non-metal, once you see this, you know that this is acidic. So whenever you are talking about properties of an acid, classify this oxide as an acid, which is to say that if SO4 is an acid, this is a base, because this is an oxide of a metal, this is an oxide of a non-metal. So non-metals form acidic oxide. Now we talked about non-metals forming acidic oxide. Now we also talked about metals being reducing agents, which means that non-metals indirectly are oxidizing agents. Because, for example, when chlorine 287 collects this 1 electron from sodium to make this 1 8, this chlorine is reduced, oxidizing this sodium. So indirectly, non-metals are generally oxidizing agents. Okay, how about metalloid? Metalloid are substances which are neither metals or non-metals. They are between metals and non-metals. With this, we have come to the end of this class. From the next classes, we'll start talking about some alloys and their constituents. We'll talk about atomic structure, where we're going to tell you more about atoms, where you need to understand most things you need to get about metals, non-metals, and the rest. This is Exquisite Tutorials. We love you. God bless you. Don't forget to like us and follow us on all social media platforms at Exquisite Tutorials. Join our post-UTME class. Don't forget, join our post-UTME class. Thank you.